Wisconsin Eye's Campaign 2024 programming is sponsored by Wisconsin Counties Association, Nicolet National Bank, Wisconsin Hospital Association, Operating Engineers Local 139, the Wisconsin Realtors Association, the Wisconsin Laborers District Council, and North Central State's Regional Council of Carpenters. To support programs like this, please consider a tax-deductible donation at wisi.org/donate or by texting WISI to 44321.
Michael Rapp of Van Dyne is a Democratic candidate for the 20th Senate District. The election is November 5th. Michael Rapp, welcome to Wisconsin Eye.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for participating in our candidate interviews. I'd like to ask you, what is your campaign's key message? Why are you running for this office?
Basically, I'm sick of the arguing in both our state house and, of course, at the federal level. Everybody wants to complain. Republicans and Democrats want to just fight. I want to just work together. Just talk to other legislators and really compromise on issues. That doesn't seem to be something people do anymore. And so I'm looking to bring that back a little more.
If you're elected, what's an example of a bill that you might introduce?
Well, something that I've been wanting to introduce more or less strictly for tax purposes has been the legalization of marijuana in some respect, whether it be just for medicinal use or recreational full use. Just that added tax revenue is so much money Wisconsin is missing out on. When all of our neighboring states have some sort of legalization, all of that sales that are coming from Wisconsin residents, because we know it's happening, people are going across the border every day and spending their money there instead of here. Why can't they spend it here? Give us the tax revenue.
If you're elected, you'd be entering the legislature during a biennial budget year. The state is projected to have more than a $3 billion surplus. Mm-hmm. What would be your top two priorities for use of that surplus?
Education. Teachers and other administrators, they need more training. They need more resources to better teach. And maybe not better teach, but more teach our children to be more well-rounded people when they come out of school. So many children I see nowadays, they exit school not knowing a lot of life skills, balancing a checkbook. I mean, that's getting better. It's happening more and more. But interviewing like this here with prospective employers, and just other skilled trades that really should be taught in the lower levels of school so that kids don't have to spend thousands of dollars in higher education to learn skills they could learn in high school.
In your answer, you don't mention taxes as part of use of the surplus. Are tax cuts or tax reforms a part of your platform in any way?
A little bit. I'm not that well versed in our tax code. I don't know exactly what taxes are collected.
Well, for instance, a flat tax has been proposed for the state, and that would be a major reform.
Right now, I just have no opinion on that.
Mm-hmm. In K-12 education, you said, is a priority for you for use mm-hmm. of the surplus funding. Is there something specifically about K-12 education that you think is not working well?
I think some of the material being taught is somewhat outdated. I look at history being one of those areas of education that's somewhat outdated. I mean, I look at my children. I have a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old. And when they're starting to go into American history, and just world history in general, they're being taught some things that were, I don't want to say irrelevant, but really don't need to be spent much time on in school. That's one thing.
Would you propose legislation in this area?
Not necessarily. I might work with other members of our state legislature that's that deals with education and the curriculum that's taught to our kids, and just kind of see where we can go from there. Again, I'm not that well versed. This is my first campaign in anything, so there's a lot to learn. But my wife was a teacher for 10 years. She just recently gave that up to do something else, pursue another passion. And I heard from her all the time that there's stuff being taught that shouldn't be being taught. I mean, discipline is a major thing in schools nowadays. We all know that, and that there's somewhat of a, I don't want to say a lack of discipline, but a lack of ability to discipline. And so I might look at that as an area as well when it comes to education too.
What does the future of Wisconsin's higher education system, 4- and 2-year colleges as well as technical colleges, look like to you, and what changes should the legislature focus on?
The first thing I have to say there is, first off, higher education to most people still remains a little costly. We can look at that a little bit and see how we could possibly reduce costs to higher education. I know Wisconsin has done quite a bit recently to address that.
Cap tuition?
Mm-hmm. That and just somewhat of a marketing campaign to get students to want to go to Wisconsin schools, universities, both 2- and 4-year schools. I don't know if there's that much of an attraction as there used to be amongst high schoolers looking to further their careers or go on after high school.
What do you see as the state's largest workforce development challenge, and how would you propose addressing it?
Good question. I would think right now it's a lack of training. That and there's a big draw for younger kids and people that are in school nowadays to try to find that quick dollar, that quick buck to become like a social media influencer, which, well, we'll get into that another time, how we feel about that career. But the workforce development problem here in Wisconsin, it's not as bad as it was recently.
More training in what area would you suggest?
The skilled trades, welding, construction, auto mechanic work, any sort of mechanic work, whether it be in automobiles, 2-stroke engines, small engines, stuff like that. It's just people don't want to seem to get their hands dirty as much as they used to. So I would look at that and see how we could address that training without needing to go to higher education.
Investments in public and energy infrastructure grow our state's economy. These investments also provide an opportunity to invest in our state's workforce, but currently there are no requirements for hiring local workers. Would you support a state resident hiring requirement for state, local, and utility scale infrastructure investments?
In some aspects, yes. Obviously, when it comes to higher or bigger projects, when contractors and or the people funding these projects are looking to get the best possible bid or best possible price for their project, obviously right now they're free to look across the country. I might look at something that says, hey, maybe look here first and then kind of see where we can go after that.
Employee classification is an issue in the construction industry. Some employers misclassify workers as independent contractors or pay them in cash off the books. This lowers costs by avoiding payroll taxes and unemployment insurance, and it puts compliant companies at a disadvantage when bidding on projects. Plus, misclassified workers may be denied minimum wage or overtime pay. Are you aware of this issue, and what do you think should be done about it?
I'm somewhat aware of it. I mean, as someone who's, I've worked for cash in the past. There are advantages and disadvantages to that. So, I mean, I'd want to learn more about the situation before I really said anything that I may or may not do about it.
Moving on to housing, affordable rental housing is an issue in Wisconsin. Some have proposed government-imposed rent control to maintain affordability, while others argue keeping rent artificially low will decrease rental supply, resulting in increased prices. What is your sense of housing as an issue, and which best addresses rental housing affordability, rent control or building more rentals?
Right now, I think the biggest thing is we just need more facilities available. So building more right now would help. I like to be aware of the environment as well. So I don't want to just go build on 100 acres of land all of a sudden. So I would want to address, or I'd want to look at
incentives.
Incentives, yes, to build more buildings versus maybe capping those rents. Somehow getting somehow getting property management companies to somehow not really reduce their rents, because that's really not something we can just do, but kind of keep those rents where they're at right now and just freeze them for a while and see what happens.
Moving on to healthcare. Medical systems are facing numerous headwinds in form of inflation, workforce development, and issues around Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement, resulting in fewer services and even the closure of a hospital system in western Wisconsin. What would you do to preserve access to care and prevent future closures?
We got to reduce costs. I look at some of the personal experiences I've had. Just simply going to a doctor to get checked over, to renew a prescription, and the doctor charges a couple $100 for a 5-minute visit. That's something I'd want to look at.
Some form of regulation around cost?
Around cost. I don't want to say the overcharging by healthcare facilities, but somehow regulating those costs to more accommodate the service they're providing. Like most people, they work on a per hour basis. It's just hypothetically you make $20 an hour. Well, if a doctor only is with you for a half an hour, their charge shouldn't be crazy. It should be a very, very low charge. And so that's something I'd want to look at.
Mental health care is also a growing concern for Wisconsinites and a concern for state and county budgets. In your district, what are you hearing about this issue, and how would you address mental health care?
Mental health care is something that's needed all across the country. More of it, more providers, more professionals in that industry. It's such a stressful environment, I can imagine. Me, luckily, not really having to deal with anybody in that profession or having to go to anything with myself. Meaning, it is a problem. Again, I'm not totally.
You'd be in supportive of solutions.
Oh yeah, definitely.
To increase access.
Definitely. Yeah.
Abortion policy currently a main contested issue in the state. How should Wisconsin move forward on the issue of abortion?
Wisconsin, I don't know how Wisconsin wants to move forward. I will tell you where I stand. If it's your body, you do what you want. That's between you and your doctor. Government should not be involved in what people can and cannot do to their own bodies. Simple as that.
Transportation. What are the pressing transportation issues and needs in your district, and how important is it that these needs are addressed, and for the state to keep on schedule with the reconstruction of aging interstates and significant corridors of commerce?
Just basically that, just reinvesting in infrastructure. My district is similar to other districts here in Wisconsin, that there are quite a bit of rural communities, which means a lot of county highways, county roads, country roads, and some of those roads aren't in the best shape. I drive on country roads every day living out in the country, and I love to run, I cycle, and so sometimes there's hardly any room on those roads. And so that's something I would definitely want to address. And how do we keep up those back roads a little bit better? Maybe give them just a teeny bit more room for the people that do live out in those communities, in those areas where there's not sidewalks and trails all everywhere.
the environment. PFAS and other water contaminants are a growing concern for Wisconsinites. Do you see this as an important issue, and how would you propose addressing it?
It is an important issue. The environment is something I do care about. I'm always talking about recycling and leaving something behind for not only my grandkids, my great-grandkids, and my great-great-grandkids. And so, I mean, I'm not entirely versed with PFAS and other things, but when it comes to pollution, I know it's bad and it's not good, and we do need to do a better job of keeping our environment clean. So I would be in support of, I don't want to say every measure, but a lot of legislative measures that would address the environment and keeping it clean.
We've made it to our last two questions. How would you describe the leading differences between you and your opponent?
Honestly, I don't know a whole lot about my opponent, good or bad, so I am not inclined to say anything.
Okay. Final question. And you talked about this in your introduction. If you had a magic wand and could use it in the state capitol when you're elected and have just one issue resolved in a way that brings people together, what would that issue be?
I think the Wisconsin legislature needs to have more potluck dinners. Bring everybody together so they talk about things other than maybe just what's going on in the state. You know, get to know each other personally. You know, find out who likes to go golfing, find out who's got kids in soccer, and find those commonalities, because once we get to those commonalities, we start to see people as other people, not just as a Republican or a Democrat. You know, in my business, I look at my customers and I see what their needs are, and I sympathize or empathize with their needs, because they're a lot of my needs as well. I tell my customers something all the time, is that I'm not going to do anything to your house that I wouldn't do to mine. And that's how I would legislate. I'm not going to make decisions in Madison that aren't good for me and my family. So why would I make decisions that's not good for you and your family?
Thank you. Michael Rapp from Van Dyne, the Democratic candidate for the 20th Senate District. The election is November 5th. Michael Rapp, thank you for talking with Wisconsinite.
Thank you.
This programming is brought to you by our generous sponsors. Thank you for watching.